What if the universe is not silent, but deliberately quiet? What if advanced civilizations exist everywhere, yet none of them want us to know? What if the greatest discovery in human history has already happened, and we were never meant to see it? What if the absence of evidence is not proof of nothing, but proof of control? And what if the real question was never, are we alone? But why are we being ignored? For decades, science has painted the same picture. A universe overflowing with stars, planets, and endless chances for life. By every calculation, by every probability, intelligent civilizations should be common, even inevitable. And yet, the sky remains disturbingly silent. In this episode, we confront that contradiction. We follow the question that shattered scientific comfort, unsettled philosophy, and still refuses to disappear. If the universe should be full of life, where is everyone? And if the silence is real, what does it mean for us? If questions like these pull at something deep inside you, stay with this journey. Subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. Because the silence we're about to explore may be far closer than you think. When we look up at the night sky, we are not looking at emptiness. We are looking at abundance. Billions of stars stretch across the darkness, each one a sun in its own right. Around many of them, planets are almost certainly orbiting, worlds formed from the same cosmic ingredients as our own. Some of those planets must sit in just the right conditions, where temperatures allow liquid water to exist, where chemistry can slowly turn into biology, and where life has a chance to begin. From a mathematical perspective, this isn't speculation, it's expectation. The laws of probability suggest that life should not be rare. Given enough stars, enough planets, and enough time, life should emerge again and again. And if life can emerge, intelligence should eventually follow, not once, not twice, but countless times across the vast history of the universe. And yet, something doesn't add up. Despite all this abundance, despite the overwhelming scale of the cosmos, we see no clear signs of anyone else, no signals, no artifacts, no unmistakable traces of advanced civilizations spreading across the stars. The universe appears not just empty, but quiet, uncomfortably quiet. This is the contradiction at the heart of our story. Logic tells us we should not be alone. Observation tells us that we are. Somewhere between those two truths, something breaks. Either our understanding of life is wrong, or our understanding of the universe is incomplete. Because a cosmos this large, this old, and this full of potential should not feel like a vacant room. And yet, when we listen closely, that is exactly what it sounds like. Silence. What if the silence isn't accidental? What if the universe isn't empty, but restrained? One possibility is unsettlingly simple. Advanced civilizations may exist, but communication between us is fundamentally broken. Not because of distance alone, but because of difference. Their methods of signaling may be so far beyond our understanding that we don't even recognize them as communication. We could be surrounded by messages and still be deaf to them. But there is a darker idea. What if the silence is intentional? Some scientists and philosophers propose what's known as the zoo hypothesis. The idea is uncomfortable, but precise. Humanity may be part of a cosmic preserve, observed, monitored, but deliberately isolated. Just as humans watch animals without interfering in their natural behavior, advanced civilizations might be watching us, waiting, studying, but never making contact, not yet. In this scenario, the silence is not a failure of detection, it's a rule, a boundary we are not allowed to cross. And perhaps that boundary exists for a reason. Maybe we are considered too unstable, too violent, too immature. Or maybe first contact only happens when a civilization reaches a certain level of understanding, not just technologically, but ethically. There's another disturbing thought layered beneath this idea. What if we are not ignored, but quarantined? If intelligent life spreads through the universe, then so might its mistakes. War, ecological collapse, uncontrolled technology. From that perspective, isolation could be protection, not just for them, but from us. Silence in this case would be a precaution, or worse, a verdict, because if advanced civilizations are capable of interstellar travel or surveillance, then silence is not absence. Silence is choice. And a chosen silence suggests awareness. Awareness of us, of our planet, of our brief and chaotic moment in cosmic history. If that's true, then the universe isn't empty, it's watching. But what if the silence wasn't always there? What if contact didn't begin in laboratories or radio telescopes, but in stories? Across ancient civilizations, separated by oceans and thousands of years, we find remarkably similar accounts. Tales of beings who descended from the sky. Figures who arrived in moments of crisis, bringing knowledge, power, and order. To modernize, these stories are labeled as myth, but to the people who recorded them, they were history. In ancient Sumer, the Anunnaki were described as gods who came from the heavens. They were said to teach humanity agriculture, law, and the foundations of civilization itself. Not symbols, not metaphors, visitors. At least, that's how they were remembered. In the ancient texts of India, flying machines known as vimanas appear again and again, described as vehicles that move through the sky, engaged in aerial battles, and unleashed weapons of unimaginable power. For thousands of years, these descriptions were dismissed as fantasy. But from a modern perspective, they read less like magic and more like misunderstood technology. Even within religious traditions, the pattern continues. Angels descending from the heavens, messengers of knowledge, beings that move between realms, delivering warnings, commands, and revelations. Some researchers have asked an uncomfortable question. Were these supernatural entities, or were they ancient humanity's only language for explaining encounters they had no framework to understand? To an early civilization, any sufficiently advanced technology would be indistinguishable from the divine. A craft in the sky becomes a chariot of the gods. A visitor from the stars becomes a messenger from heaven. The story survives, even if the explanation is lost. Of course, none of this is proof. Myths are shaped by culture, fear, and imagination. But the repetition is hard to ignore. Different continents, different languages, strikingly similar stories. If even a fraction of these accounts were inspired by real encounters, then the universe's silence may not be a mystery of absence, but a mystery of memory. And that raises a troubling possibility. What if the silence began after we were noticed? By the middle of the 20th century, humanity began asking these questions in a very different way. Not through myths, not through sacred texts, but through mathematics and physics. In 1950, at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, a small group of scientists were having lunch. The conversation drifted, as it often did, toward the possibility of extraterrestrial life. They talked about stars, planets, and the sheer scale of the universe. Nothing extraordinary. until Enrico Fermi spoke. Fermi, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, interrupted the discussion with a simple question. No equations, no speculation, just 5 words that would echo for decades. Where is everybody? The power of the question came from its simplicity. If the universe is as large as we believe, if stars and planets are as common as our observations suggest, and if life can arise naturally, then intelligent civilizations should have emerged long before us. Some should be millions, even billions of years more advanced. And yet, there was nothing. No visitors, no signals, no undeniable evidence of anyone else sharing the cosmic stage. This contradiction became known as the Fermi Paradox, not a theory, not an answer, a problem, a wound in our understanding of the universe that refused to heal. Because if advanced civilizations exist, their absence demands an explanation. And if they don't exist, then the universe is far stranger and lonelier than we ever imagined. Fermi didn't offer a solution that day. He didn't need to. The question itself was enough to unsettle everything we thought we knew. Once Fermi's question is asked, the numbers become impossible to ignore. Our galaxy alone, the Milky Way, contains hundreds of billions of stars. Modern astronomy tells us that most of those stars host planetary systems, and within those systems, countless worlds exist in regions where liquid water could survive, places where chemistry has time to experiment, places where life could begin. This isn't optimism, it's statistics. When you multiply stars by planets and planets by time, life stops being a miracle and starts looking like a process. Given billions of years, even rare events become inevitable, and intelligence, once it appears, doesn't stay quiet forever. Technology grows, energy use increases, signals leak into space, civilizations leave traces. We did, in less than a century. Radio waves from Earth have already traveled tens of light years outward, forming a thin, expanding shell of human presence. We've barely taken our first steps into the cosmic timeline, and yet we are already visible. If other civilizations existed long before us, their technological footprints should be everywhere. But they aren't. The numbers insist that intelligent life should be common. The sky insists that it isn't. This is where the paradox tightens its grip. Either our assumptions about life are deeply flawed, or something is preventing civilizations from lasting long enough to be seen. The universe doesn't just feel quiet, it feels selectively quiet. And the more the numbers add up, the more disturbing the silence becomes, because mathematics leaves us with only 2 possibilities. Either we are extraordinarily rare, or something is removing everyone else. One possible answer to the paradox is far more terrifying than silence. It suggests that the universe is not empty, but lethal. This idea is known as the Great Filter. It proposes that somewhere along the path from simple life to advanced civilization, there is a barrier so difficult to cross that almost no one survives it. A step where most civilizations fail, a moment where progress ends. The filter could appear early. Life itself might be incredibly rare. The leap from chemistry to biology may happen only under impossibly precise conditions. If that's true, then humanity is already extraordinary, a cosmic anomaly that somehow made it through the first gate. But there's a far darker possibility. What if the filter lies ahead of us? Civilizations may routinely reach a level of technological power they cannot control. Nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, environmental collapse, self-replicating machines. tools powerful enough to reshape a planet or destroy it. Humanity created such technologies in a matter of decades. On a cosmic timescale, that is an instant. If other civilizations followed the same trajectory, then the pattern is grimly predictable. They rise, they advance, and then they disappear. The silence wouldn't be a mystery, it would be a graveyard. In this scenario, the universe is not lacking intelligence. It is full of short-lived civilizations that burn too brightly, too quickly. The stars may be littered with worlds that once dreamed, once built, once asked the same questions we do now, before crossing a line they couldn't step back from. And this is the most unsettling question of all. Have we already passed the great filter, or are we approaching it right now? If the filter lies behind us, then we are unimaginably lucky. If it lies ahead, then the silence of the universe is not a puzzle to solve. It's a warning. Today, the search is no longer confined to speculation or ancient stories. We are actively listening. For decades, projects like SETI have scanned the sky, searching for artificial signals, patterns that nature alone is unlikely to produce. Vast radio telescopes sweep across the cosmos, decoding noise, filtering static, hoping for something unmistakably intentional. So far, every candidate signal has eventually collapsed into explanation. Pulsars, cosmic interference, human technology. The silence remains, but our tools are changing. With the launch of next-generation observatories like the James Webb Space Telescope, humanity has begun to do something entirely new. We are no longer just looking for planets. We are analyzing their atmospheres, searching for oxygen, methane, water vapor, chemical fingerprints that, on Earth, are closely tied to life. For the first time, the question is becoming testable. At the same time, something else has forced its way into the conversation. In recent years, governments, including the United States Department of Defense, have publicly released reports on what they now call UAPs, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. These are not internet rumors or grainy videos pulled from anonymous sources. They are documented observations from trained military pilots, radar systems, and multiple sensor platforms, objects that accelerate without visible propulsion, that change direction instantly, that outperform known aircraft by orders of magnitude. No conclusions have been reached, no explanations confirmed. Some cases remain unresolved. Scientists caution against jumping to extraordinary claims, but the data exists, and it refuses to fit neatly into what we already understand. This is where the boundary blurs, between science and uncertainty, between skepticism and curiosity, between what we can explain and what we can only observe. The modern search hasn't answered Fermi's question, but it has made one thing clear. The silence is not being ignored anymore. And that changes everything. When all the theories are stripped away, the data analyzed, and the stories weighed, one truth remains unchanged. The silence forces us to look inward. If we are truly alone, if intelligence has emerged only once in the observable universe, then humanity carries an extraordinary burden. We are not just another species on another planet. We would be the universe's only known point of self-awareness, the only place where matter has learned to question itself. That idea is not comforting. It is overwhelming, because if there is no one else, then there is no backup, no second chance elsewhere. Every war, every extinction, every reckless decision becomes final. The survival of intelligence would rest entirely on our ability to outgrow our own instincts. But if we are not alone, the implications are just as unsettling. If advanced civilizations exist and remain silent, then that silence is meaningful. It suggests rules we don't yet understand, thresholds we haven't crossed, or intentions that are not ours to decide. Whether we are ignored, observed, or deliberately avoided, one thing is clear. The universe is not obligated to reveal itself on our terms. This leaves us suspended between two equally profound possibilities. Either we are unimaginably rare, or we are not yet ready. And perhaps the most disturbing thought is this: the universe may already know which one is true. The silence may not be asking us to listen harder, it may be asking us to grow. The Fermi Paradox doesn't give us answers, it gives us perspective. We looked at a universe that should be overflowing with life, and instead found silence. We explored the possibilities, chance, filters, observation, extinction, and realized that none of them are comforting. Whether we are alone or simply unheard, the conclusion is the same. Humanity stands at a fragile moment in cosmic history, trying to understand its place in something far larger than itself. And yet, this question doesn't end here. Because if civilizations can vanish, if intelligence can be temporary, then another question quietly emerges, one even more unsettling than cosmic silence. A question about survival, about continuity, about whether intelligence, once born, can escape its own limits, not just across space, but across time. If this exploration stayed with you, if it unsettled you in the right way, then continue this journey with us. Subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. Because the questions we're moving toward next may challenge not just where we are in the universe, but whether intelligence itself was ever meant to last,